Stop for just one moment and imagine the silence. The kind of silence that only exists inside ancient stone corridors where history has been written, rewritten, protected, and sometimes painfully sacrificed, because according to explosive new whispers coming from the heart of the British monarchy, King Charles III may have finally made the one decision nobody believed this father would ever make. A decision that could permanently redefine the relationship between the Crown, Prince Harry, and Meghan Markle forever. Because according to multiple well-connected royal sources, the message was allegedly simple. Stay away. No summer invitation. No private family gathering. No carefully staged reconciliation. And perhaps most shocking of all, no access to Sandringham House. Now ask yourself something honestly. If a father spends years defending a son, protecting a son, excusing a son, and quietly leaving the door open for one more conversation, one more reunion, one more chance to repair what was broken, what finally happens when even that father reaches the point where love is no longer enough? Because according to palace whispers, that question may now define the reign of King Charles III. And if these reports are accurate, what happened over the last 48 hours may become one of the most significant internal royal developments since the earliest days of the modern House of Windsor. Now, to be absolutely clear, none of these claims have been officially confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and much of what is being discussed comes from unnamed sources, private briefings, and royal insiders speaking on condition of anonymity. But according to those sources, the decision allegedly came after a series of deeply frustrating international headlines involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, headlines that reportedly landed on the desk of King Charles III during one of the most physically demanding periods of the king's life. And according to insiders, that timing mattered. Because while King Charles III continues public duties under the shadow of ongoing health challenges, palace observers claim the king has privately become far more protective of his energy, his schedule, and perhaps most importantly, his legacy. And that is where everything allegedly changed. Because sources close to the palace claim that what began as routine discussions about the summer calendar, family visits, and seasonal planning connected to Sandringham House quickly turned into something far more emotionally charged when advisors reportedly raised one difficult question. What happens if another private family moment becomes public content? Now think about that. What happens if a private dinner becomes a podcast anecdote? What happens if a quiet walk becomes a documentary scene? What happens if a family conversation becomes another headline, another interview, another chapter in another memoir? Would you open the gates again? Or would you finally close them? Because according to royal insiders, that exact fear may have become central to the king's thinking. And if that is true, then the decision involving Sandringham House was never really about a holiday. It was about trust. And according to multiple palace observers, trust inside the monarchy may now be in shorter supply than ever. Because while the public often sees royal family tension as emotional drama, people who actually understand institutions like the House of Windsor know something deeper. Royal trust is not emotional. Royal trust is operational. Royal trust determines access. Royal trust determines briefings. Royal trust determines who enters rooms where no cameras are allowed. And according to the latest whispers from inside Buckingham Palace, Prince Harry may have run out of it. But if that alone sounds dramatic, the next detail may be even more revealing. Because according to sources close to the next generation of the monarchy, Prince William, the future king, has reportedly been quietly urging stronger institutional boundaries for years. Not revenge. Not punishment. Not public humiliation. Boundaries. Sources claim Prince William has privately argued that every unresolved conflict, every public interview, every commercially packaged family revelation, and every media-driven controversy places long-term strain not just on King Charles III, but on the future monarchy that Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, are expected to inherit. Now let me ask you something. If you were Prince William, watching your father balance duty, diplomacy, public expectation, private pain, and ongoing health concerns, would you keep waiting for peace? Or would you start protecting the institution before the damage becomes permanent? Because according to palace observers, many believe the future king may have already made that choice. And what makes this even more fascinating is that insiders claim Catherine, Princess of Wales, has quietly become one of the strongest symbols of that next chapter, not through speeches, not through press statements, but through something much harder to manufacture. Consistency, discipline, public trust. And according to several royal commentators, that trust now stands in direct contrast to the uncertainty surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But then came the alleged final trigger. And according to multiple sources, it wasn't one interview. It wasn't one headline. It wasn't one international appearance. It was the growing belief inside the palace that every act of private grace was becoming public leverage. And if that belief truly reached the desk of King Charles III, then what happened next may have been inevitable. Because according to insiders, sometime during an early morning briefing inside Buckingham Palace, after reviewing a fresh wave of headlines connected to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, King Charles III allegedly looked up, paused, and said just enough to change the entire summer. And according to Palace Whispers, that was the moment the doors of Sandringham House quietly began to close. But what exactly did Prince Harry allegedly do that finally pushed the king beyond patience? And why are insiders now saying that one overseas appearance may have changed everything? That is where this story becomes truly explosive. If the alleged closing of the doors at Sandringham House shocked royal watchers across Britain, across America, and across every corner of the Commonwealth where the future of the monarchy is still followed with almost religious intensity, what reportedly happened next may explain why insiders are now calling this not simply a family dispute, not merely another Sussex controversy, but the moment King Charles III finally stopped thinking like a father and started acting entirely like a sovereign. Because according to multiple palace sources, the alleged final trigger did not begin inside Buckingham Palace. It did not begin inside a private family meeting. It did not begin at a holiday gathering. And according to insiders, it did not even begin in Britain. Sources claim the moment that allegedly pushed King Charles III closer to his breaking point began thousands of miles away, during a series of international appearances involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, appearances that some palace observers reportedly described as increasingly difficult to separate from the image, authority, and diplomatic sensitivities of the crown itself. And according to those reports, that is where the pressure started building. Now ask yourself something honestly. If you were a monarch already carrying the physical burden of public duty, already managing an institution under global scrutiny, already balancing constitutional responsibility with personal health challenges, how would you react if every international headline involving your own son created fresh political distractions, fresh media storms, and fresh questions about the unity of the institution you spent your entire life preparing to lead? Would you continue absorbing the damage? Or would you finally draw a line? Because according to insiders close to the royal household, that line may have been drawn during a private early morning briefing delivered directly to King Charles III. And according to those whispers, the newspapers were not kind. The international commentary was not gentle. And the timing could not have been worse. Because according to palace observers, the alleged headlines arriving on the king's desk reportedly focused not only on fresh public appearances involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but on the growing perception that the Sussex brand was increasingly positioning itself somewhere between celebrity activism, personal branding, and unofficial royal relevance. And inside institutions like the House of Windsor, that distinction matters. It matters financially. It matters diplomatically. It matters constitutionally. And most importantly, it matters symbolically. Because according to insiders, every time Prince Harry appears on a global stage, every time Meghan Markle generates another wave of media speculation, every time cameras frame the couple beneath royal titles while operating outside royal accountability, the institution allegedly absorbs the confusion. Now think about that. If titles remain, if public fascination remains, if commercial value remains tied to royal identity, then where exactly does private independence end? And institutional dependency begin? What do you think? Because according to sources close to palace advisors, that exact question may have dominated multiple internal conversations involving senior royal staff during the weeks leading up to the alleged Sandringham decision. But here is where the story becomes even more revealing. Because according to insiders, while King Charles III was allegedly wrestling with these concerns privately, another voice inside the monarchy had reportedly become impossible to ignore. Prince William, the future king. The man many royal observers believe has spent the past several years quietly preparing for an accelerated era of institutional modernization. And according to multiple palace whispers, Prince William has allegedly been privately warning that unresolved Sussex tensions no longer represent emotional family drama. They represent strategic institutional risk. Now that is a very different conversation. Because emotional drama can be managed. Private disappointment can be absorbed. Family disagreements can be hidden. But strategic risk. Strategic risk changes succession planning. Strategic risk changes access. Strategic risk changes trust. And according to palace insiders, the future king reportedly believes trust is now the rarest currency inside the modern monarchy. But if Prince William was allegedly urging stronger boundaries, who was reinforcing that next-generation vision? According to multiple royal commentators, one answer keeps emerging. Catherine, Princess of Wales. Because sources close to the palace claim that while Catherine, Princess of Wales remains publicly focused on family, duty, and carefully measured appearances, privately the Princess of Wales is increasingly viewed as the embodiment of stability, discipline, and public trust. And inside royal institutions, symbols matter. Because when the public sees Kate Middleton, they see continuity, they see restraint, they see the future. And according to palace observers, that growing public trust has allegedly strengthened the confidence of Prince William in pushing for firmer institutional boundaries. Now let me ask you directly. If you were King Charles III, watching your eldest son build credibility, watching Catherine, Princess of Wales become one of the most trusted figures in public life, and at the same time watching fresh controversies involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle dominate international headlines, which path would you choose? Reconciliation or preservation? Because according to insiders, that decision may have become unavoidable. And then came what sources now describe as the guest list question. Not a public event, not a diplomatic summit, a private family gathering, a summer schedule, a seasonal retreat at Sandringham House. And according to palace whispers, during planning conversations involving attendance, accommodations, security logistics, and intergenerational family schedules, one question reportedly froze the room. If Prince Harry and Meghan Markle attend, who else refuses to come? Now think about that. Because if that question was truly asked, then this was no longer about invitation. This was about alignment. This was about emotional safety. This was about operational reality. And according to palace observers, once that possibility entered the discussion, the alleged invitation may have become politically impossible. Because how do you host reconciliation? If reconciliation creates division, how do you protect family unity? If unity itself has already fractured? And according to the most dramatic whispers yet, by the time the final recommendations allegedly reached the desk of King Charles III, the king reportedly understood something painful. Sometimes leaving the door open invites more damage. Sometimes kindness creates leverage. And sometimes a father must act like a king. But if the alleged Sandringham decision truly happened behind closed doors, what happened when Prince Harry reportedly found out? And why are insiders now claiming that the next conversation between father and son may have been colder than anything seen since the release of Spare? Because according to palace whispers, that conversation may have changed everything. If the alleged decision to close the doors of Sandringham House was already being described by palace insiders as one of the most emotionally charged moments of the reign of King Charles III, what reportedly happened next may explain why veteran royal watchers are now whispering something far more dramatic. That this was never simply about a summer invitation, never simply about holiday logistics, and never simply about family discomfort, because according to multiple well-connected sources, the real storm began not when the decision was made, but when Prince Harry allegedly found out. And according to palace whispers, the reaction was immediate, not public, not official, not confirmed, but immediate. Now before we go any further, ask yourself something honestly. If you spent years insisting that family reconciliation remain possible, if you spent years speaking publicly about healing, forgiveness, fatherhood, and repairing broken relationships, how would you react if the very place that once symbolized royal belonging suddenly became inaccessible? Would you accept the message? Would you reflect on what brought you there? Or would you fight to regain access at any cost? Because according to insiders close to the royal household, that question may now define everything surrounding the next phase of the Sussex saga. And once again, None of these allegations have been officially confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and much of what is circulating comes from unnamed palace contacts, royal commentators, and private briefings that remain speculative. But according to multiple sources, the first signs of tension allegedly appeared not inside Britain, but thousands of miles away in Montecito, because sources claim that shortly after the alleged Sandringham decision was quietly communicated through private channels, conversations inside the Sussex Circle reportedly shifted from optimism to strategy. And that word matters. Strategy. Because according to palace observers, whenever access to the monarchy becomes uncertain, access itself becomes currency. And in the modern media era, currency becomes leverage. Now think about that carefully. If you cannot enter the palace physically, could you re-enter the narrative publicly? If private doors close, do public microphones suddenly become more attractive? What do you think? Because according to multiple royal commentators, that possibility may have immediately triggered concern inside the senior offices of Buckingham Palace. And if those concerns were real, then what happened next becomes even more revealing. Because according to sources close to palace communications teams, the moment whispers of the alleged Sandringham decision began circulating through informal royal circles, senior advisors reportedly started preparing for what insiders privately call secondary impact. Not legal risk, not security risk, narrative risk. And inside modern monarchies, narrative risk can be just as dangerous as constitutional crisis. Because one interview can reshape public sympathy. One documentary can revive old wounds. One memoir can dominate global headlines. And according to palace observers, King Charles III may now understand that better than anyone alive. But here is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because according to multiple palace whispers, while advisors around King Charles III were allegedly preparing for possible media fallout, another figure inside the monarchy reportedly remained remarkably calm. Prince William, the future king. The man many insiders now describe as increasingly operational, increasingly strategic, and increasingly unwilling to confuse family sentiment with institutional necessity. And according to sources close to the next generation of royal leadership, Prince William allegedly made one argument that changed the tone of the entire discussion. The institution cannot negotiate with uncertainty. Now pause on that. Because those 7 words, if truly spoken, reveal everything. The institution cannot negotiate with uncertainty. Not while public trust is fragile. Not while succession planning is accelerating. Not while global headlines continue testing the boundaries between private celebrity and constitutional identity. And according to palace observers, that argument reportedly landed with extraordinary force. But what makes this even more significant is the role insiders believe Catherine, Princess of Wales, has quietly played behind the scenes. Because while Catherine, Princess of Wales, remains publicly focused on health, family, and carefully selected appearances, insiders claim the Princess of Wales has become one of the strongest symbols of what the next monarchy intends to represent. Discipline, privacy, consistency, and perhaps most importantly, boundaries. Because according to royal commentators, the public increasingly sees Kate Middleton not simply as a beloved royal, but as the emotional center of the monarchy's future. And inside palace strategy discussions, public trust equals institutional power. Now ask yourself, if Prince William represents operational authority, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, represents emotional credibility, what happens when those two forces align? Could that explain why the alleged Sandringham decision feels less like family drama, and more like succession in motion? Because according to palace insiders, that may be exactly what is happening. But then came the most emotionally sensitive development of all. Because according to multiple sources, after the alleged decision was communicated, there were reportedly private efforts to arrange direct contact between Prince Harry and King Charles III. Not a public reconciliation. Not a media appearance. A private conversation. Father and son. And according to insiders, that conversation never unfolded the way many expected. Sources claim that scheduling complications, diplomatic preparations, health considerations, and increasingly controlled communication channels allegedly created delays that only deepened the emotional distance between both sides. Now think about that. What hurts more? Being rejected? Or being unable to even reach the person who rejected you? Because according to palace observers, silence may have become the loudest message of all. And if that silence truly came from the office of King Charles III, then many believe the king may already have made the most painful choice of his reign. Not choosing between sons. Not choosing between generations. Choosing between love and stability. But if Prince Harry allegedly realized the doors of Sandringham House were closing, and if palace communications were allegedly preparing for narrative fallout, then one terrifying question suddenly began circulating behind closed palace doors. What happens if the next response comes through the media? Another interview? Another streaming project? Another book? Another truth-telling moment? What would that do to a monarch already carrying extraordinary personal and institutional pressure? And according to the most dramatic whispers of all, that exact question may have triggered the next emergency conversation involving King Charles III, Prince William, and senior palace advisors. Because if the first battle was about invitations, the next battle may be about survival. And what Prince William allegedly said in that room may permanently change the future of the monarchy. If the alleged silence between King Charles III and Prince Harry was already being described by palace insiders as emotionally devastating, what reportedly happened next may explain why veteran royal commentators are now calling this not merely another chapter in the Sussex saga, not simply another period of royal tension, and certainly not another temporary family disagreement, but the beginning of what some insiders are privately describing as the most aggressive institutional reset inside the British royal family since the late 20th century. Because according to multiple well-connected sources, once the alleged Sandringham decision was quietly delivered and once the possibility of media retaliation reportedly entered private discussions, an emergency strategy meeting was allegedly scheduled inside the inner administrative wing of Buckingham Palace. Not a ceremonial gathering. Not a public planning session. Not a diplomatic briefing. An institutional meeting. And according to palace whispers, only a very small circle was invited. King Charles III, Prince William, senior constitutional advisors, communications strategists, and according to some of the most dramatic reports, at least one advisor closely aligned with Catherine, Princess of Wales. Now stop and ask yourself something carefully. If your family conflict suddenly carries diplomatic consequences, media consequences, succession consequences, and even public trust consequences, does that conflict remain personal? Or does it become state business? Because according to insiders, that question may have changed the tone of the entire meeting. And according to those same reports, the man who allegedly spoke first was not the reigning monarch, not the communications director, not a constitutional lawyer. It was Prince William, the future king. The man many insiders now describe as increasingly less emotional, increasingly more strategic, and increasingly willing to make decisions that previous generations may have delayed for years. And according to palace whispers, the message allegedly delivered by Prince William was not dramatic, not theatrical, not emotional. It was clinical. Sources claim Prince William allegedly told the room that the monarchy could no longer operate as if every private family conflict would remain private, because in the digital era every conversation, every meeting, every invitation, and every act of reconciliation now carries commercial value. Now think about that. Commercial value. What does that mean inside a 1,000-year-old institution? It means a hug can become content. A dinner can become a headline. A reunion can become a documentary. A private moment can become a global product. And if that fear truly exists inside the palace, how do you protect the crown? Do you keep opening doors? Or do you start locking them? What would you do? Because according to insiders, that exact question allegedly forced even King Charles III to confront something deeply uncomfortable. Not whether Prince Harry still loved his family. Not whether Meghan Markle still wanted reconciliation. But whether access itself had become leverage. And according to multiple palace observers, that realization changed everything. But here is where the story becomes even more explosive. Because according to sources close to the communications office, palace strategists allegedly began preparing for what insiders privately call Scenario 4. Not public criticism. Not tabloid leaks. Not another memoir. Something far more dangerous. A coordinated narrative event. Now, to be absolutely clear, there is no official confirmation that any such event was being planned, and none of these allegations have been publicly verified by Buckingham Palace. But according to multiple royal commentators, Scenario 4 allegedly referred to the possibility that Prince Harry or Meghan Markle could respond to the alleged Sandringham rejection through a carefully timed media appearance, interview, streaming announcement, or strategically leaked personal story. Now ask yourself, would that surprise anyone? After everything the world has already seen? After interviews? After memoirs? After documentaries? After years of headlines? Would one more media moment really shock the public? Or would it simply confirm what the palace now allegedly fears most? Because according to insiders, that fear may have become the foundation of a new royal strategy. Distance, boundaries, documentation, controlled access. And if those reports are true, then this is no longer reconciliation management. This is institutional containment. But what makes this chapter even more fascinating is the role many insiders believe Catherine, Princess of Wales, is quietly playing behind the scenes. Because while the Princess of Wales remains publicly graceful, measured, and almost impossibly disciplined, palace observers claim the influence of Kate Middleton inside the next generation of royal planning has never been stronger. Why? Because public trust creates strategic freedom. And no figure inside the modern monarchy currently commands more emotional credibility with the public than Catherine, Princess of Wales. Now think about what that means. If Prince William provides operational authority, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, provides public legitimacy, what happens when both are preparing for the same future? Could that explain why some insiders now believe the transition to the next era of the monarchy has already quietly begun? Because according to palace whispers, that may be exactly what is happening. And if that sounds dramatic, the next detail is even harder to ignore. Because according to multiple sources, during this alleged emergency strategy session, one document reportedly changed the atmosphere of the room. Not a financial report, not a media briefing, a guest list. A confidential seasonal guest list connected to Sandringham House. And according to those reports, the list allegedly included carefully scheduled attendance windows for senior royals, children, security coordination, medical support arrangements, and private family time connected to both Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. And that is when one question reportedly froze the room. If Prince Harry and Meghan Markle arrive, who leaves? Now pause on that, because if that question was truly asked, then the Sandringham decision was never emotional. It was logistical. It was generational. It was strategic. And according to palace observers, once that reality became impossible to ignore, even King Charles III allegedly understood something heartbreaking. A father can invite everyone. A monarch cannot. And according to the most dramatic whispers yet, after several long moments of silence, after advisors reviewed scheduling conflicts, security implications, public perception risks, and long-term succession concerns, King Charles III allegedly made his choice. Not as a father, not as a grandfather, as a king. But if the alleged Sandringham ban truly became official behind closed doors, how did Meghan Markle reportedly respond? And why are insiders now claiming that one conversation inside Montecito may have triggered the most unpredictable chapter of this royal drama yet? Because according to palace whispers, that response may already be in motion. If the alleged emergency strategy meeting inside Buckingham Palace marked the moment the monarchy stopped managing a family dispute and started managing an institutional threat, what reportedly happened next may explain why seasoned royal commentators are now saying that this was never truly about one invitation, one holiday, or even one painful father and son disagreement. Because according to the most explosive whispers now circulating through palace circles, the real aftermath began not in Britain, but inside Montecito. And according to multiple sources close to royal observers, the moment the alleged Sandringham decision became impossible to reverse, the atmosphere surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle reportedly shifted from optimism to calculation, from reconciliation to survival. Now ask yourself something honestly. If your connection to one of the most powerful institutions in the world suddenly becomes uncertain, if private access begins disappearing, if invitations quietly stop arriving, and if the very doors that once represented belonging begin closing one by one, what do you protect first? Your family, your image, your finances, or your relevance? Because according to multiple royal commentators, that may now be the question quietly shaping every decision around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And once again, none of these claims have been officially confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and much of what is being discussed comes from unnamed insiders, private briefings, and speculative commentary. But according to multiple sources, the alleged response from the Sussex Circle was not immediate public outrage, not dramatic statements, not social media messaging, not official denial. Silence. And inside royal storytelling, silence can be louder than headlines. Because silence creates anticipation. Silence creates speculation. Silence creates fear. And according to palace observers, that silence reportedly unsettled senior advisors more than any interview ever could. Why? Because uncertainty creates vulnerability. And institutions like the House of Windsor do not fear noise nearly as much as they fear unpredictability. Now think about that. If Prince Harry remains quiet, what is coming next? A documentary? A memoir? A strategic interview? A carefully timed appearance? A reconciliation campaign? What do you think? Because according to insiders close to palace communications teams, those exact questions allegedly triggered a second layer of operational planning inside Buckingham Palace. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because according to sources, while advisors around King Charles III were allegedly preparing for every possible media scenario, another figure inside the monarchy reportedly appeared calmer than ever. Prince William, the future king, the man many insiders now describe as already operating with the mindset of a sovereign. And according to Palace Whispers, during one of the final private strategy sessions, Prince William allegedly delivered a message so direct, so cold, and so institutionally focused that several advisors reportedly wrote it down word for word. According to those reports, Prince William allegedly said that institutions do not survive by chasing approval. Institutions survive by protecting trust. Now pause on that, because if those words were truly spoken, those words may reveal more about the future reign of Prince William than any coronation speech ever could. And if palace observers are right, those words may also explain why the influence of Catherine, Princess of Wales, has become so significant during this alleged transition. Because according to multiple commentators, Kate Middleton is no longer seen merely as a beloved royal figure. Kate Middleton is increasingly seen as the emotional anchor of the monarchy's next era. Consistency, privacy, grace, discipline, credibility, and inside public institutions. Credibility is power. Now let me ask you directly. If the public trusts Catherine, Princess of Wales, if the institution trusts Prince William, and if King Charles III is increasingly focused on preserving legacy rather than repairing old wounds, does that mean the transition to the next royal era has already begun? Because according to palace insiders, many believe the answer is yes. But then came the most emotionally painful detail of all. Because according to multiple sources close to the King's Circle, after the alleged Sandringham decision, King Charles III reportedly spent several quiet moments reviewing photographs. Family photographs, private photographs, images involving grandchildren, images involving earlier years, images from a time before interviews, before documentaries, before memoirs, before headlines. And according to insiders, that may have been the moment this story stopped being political and became deeply human. Because behind every crown, there is still a father. Behind every title, there is still a family. And behind every institutional decision, there is still pain. Now think about that. Could you make that decision? Could you close the door on your own son? Not because love disappeared, but because trust did? What would you do? Because according to Palace Whispers, that emotional conflict may define how history eventually judges King Charles III. Not as the monarch who chose confrontation, not as the father who chose distance, but as the sovereign who finally understood that sometimes protecting the institution means accepting heartbreak. And according to the most dramatic whispers yet, as preparations continue for upcoming diplomatic duties, family scheduling, succession planning, and the next chapter of the House of Windsor, one message is now allegedly understood across every senior royal office. The doors of Sandringham House do not close easily, but once they close, they rarely reopen on the same terms. And perhaps that is the real story here. Not scandal, not revenge, not punishment, consequences. Because every decision, every interview, every headline, every broken confidence, eventually comes due. And now I want to ask you, if you were King Charles III, would you have made the same choice? Would you protect family? Or protect the future of the crown? Would you reopen the gates? Or would you stand with Prince William, with Catherine, Princess of Wales, and with the next generation of the monarchy? Tell me in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over, and your perspective matters. And if you enjoy deep royal investigations, palace strategy, succession drama, and the hidden stories shaping the future of the monarchy, make sure you subscribe, stay engaged, and stay close. Because inside the House of Windsor, the loudest battles are often fought in complete silence.